There's so many things in the world that need to be changed. Whatever small little thing that I can do, I'll try to do it in my sphere of influence.
From the very beginning, it was always instilled in me that you should make a difference. To whom much is given, much is required, was just kind of a daily mantra at our house.
You would be so good at this. And I've fallen for that a number of times. But that's opened incredible doors.
We have such a short time on this earth, and I think we do have to pick our causes.
We're motivated by something. All of us are. See where you've come from, where you've been, where your passions have been, really.
There's a little squib, a little saying, life is a grindstone. Whether it grinds you down or polishes you up depends upon you. I was an only child. When I was 6 or 7, my father developed an illness, and consequently, my mother took him from hospital to hospital. So, life was not easy because of his illness, and my mother sent me to my grandparents to live while she was with him. They gave me lots and lots of love, but life just wasn't what other kids 7 and 8 and 9 had. That was sort of the turning point of my growing up. I think I always had more understanding of other people's hurts than most kids. I looked at other people, and if they hurt, I felt it. I have had a wonderful life, but I have suffered losses, which we all do. I lost my first husband when I was 46, and I thought he'd be around forever. And then I remarried very happily and had many happy years with my second husband. The most important things I've ever wanted was my home, my children, my husband, my grandchildren, my mother, family, and getting to know people. It's a very rewarding thing to feel that you've had any input in anybody else's life, somehow helping them along the way. Life is not always easy, but we either get stronger or we get weaker. I hope I've gotten stronger.
I was one of these kids that always asked why. If you told me something, I said why. I wanted to know what made the world go round. My mother was active in the community. She was always going to the mayor's office, addressing grievances and so forth. And so she was willing to stand up, for things that she believed was right. My father was the same way. I'm a child that grew up in the 50s and the 60s. So as an African American, that era had a real big impact on my life. I'm the beneficiary of many of the people who sat in, who were very much involved in the civil rights movement in terms of opening doors. I had to do something to use the gifts that I had been given to do something positive, to move forward, to move the situation of the world forward. It's important for me to be positive, to exude excellence, to open doors so that if I happen to be the first, that won't be a problem anymore. There'll be more and many more that will come behind me and have new opportunities. We have to just start with our little sphere of influence and try to take it one step at a time. In our church, we had adopted an orphanage in Durban, South Africa, and we were there on a trip at an international AIDS conference, and we realized there was a need and there was something that we could do, that our little church could do, could help that orphanage buy the property on which they were squatters. I have been blessed, so I have to bless, and I have to push the envelope forward.
When I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a lawyer. I just always felt like that's what I wanted to do. I always loved running for anything. So I was on the student council and an officer in most every group that I was a part of. My mother had faced serious cancer issues and surgery all throughout my life. At several different points along the way, we really thought that we might lose her. And so that made a real impression on me in terms of what's really important in life. One of my children became seriously ill, and I had one of those epiphanies, actually in the intensive care unit at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital, where I realized that I couldn't do it all. I literally had to make the decision that I was going to leave my job working for Governor Alexander, who has been one of my mentors through my whole professional life. But I'll never forget, both he and Honey called me at the hospital, and I said, I'm just going to have to go home. We don't know what's going to happen. And he said, that's exactly where you need to be. I just feel like this has truly been such a blessing in my life, that through this opportunity of service that I can speak to larger groups that perhaps I wouldn't have been able to do at a more local level. I'm just so excited about the future and the impact that we may have on the world. Perhaps that can help us, bring us to a more peaceful place.
I was planted in a way with my family that gave me, through just their mentoring, a love of people. I really didn't understand it, but I watched them within our community, always giving back. That's when I really started to internalize my interest and my curiosity, truly, in a strong way, about what was going on around me. I knew that whatever I would choose to do, that it would be in service. I believe in the heart of all of us that we have thoughts and dreams and ideas of who we are as a person. I wanted to give back to society. And I've always said to young people and to my own children, if you want to be happy in life, give, go into service. That will make you happy. I get really motivated when I see injustice at any level as it relates to people in their lives, with single women in our community that perhaps have children. They don't have the resources available to them, oftentimes the challenges that they face. Just by engaging and having the right voice for someone to speak for you, perhaps life could get better. We all need to function or get involved in our community. That's what makes community. I'm only one, but one is 100% greater than none.
Women didn't have a lot of role models for professions in those days. You sort of were either a teacher or a nurse. I loved going to school, and my teachers were my role models, so I thought when I grew up I'd like to be a teacher. I fell deeply in love with my childhood sweetheart. In the fall, instead of entering the university, we were married. I'll have to say that that was definitely a decision that changed the rest of our lives. When I started working in the real world, I really began to have my eyes opened. I reported directly to the CEO, and because of that, I was able to see the salaries of all the employees. When a man would be promoted into a higher level position, and perhaps a woman would be promoted into the position that he had just left, she was making like half as much. So when I asked the CEO why that occurred, His answer was basically that, well, that's just the way things are. That had a real impact on my thinking. I think it molded my thinking about men and women in the workplace for the rest of my life. I just decided that I wanted to spend my time working, yes, but also making a difference whenever I could or whenever I was in a position to do so, to right those wrongs, if you will, and to bring women along.
I wish I could say I'm a product of my own vision, but I'm a victim of other people's visions. And that's been a great thing. Early on, before I had children, I joined the Junior League. And in the Junior League, there are wiser women who mentor and show you what needs to be done, and they help you figure out your talents and where you can use them. Children's causes rung my bell pretty early. Kids needed to be immunized. Kids needed to grow up safe. They needed to be fed and housed. And it was definitely older women, not much older. 5 years older seemed like a lot back then when you're 22. Somebody who was 27 or 28, they knew what they were doing. Would say, come try this with me. I started writing. I always enjoyed writing, but I never thought you could actually make a living doing that. Working for In Focus is sort of a synthesis of what I've done the last 20 or however long years. Every time I go out with that dang tape recorder, somebody tells me something that's exciting that's happening right now and the difference that they're going to make. They want to have their picture made, and they want to share with you the mission of their nonprofit, the things they're passionate about, and the job of funneling that through a little magazine and letting people know about it in a way that's appealing. That's my challenge every day.
It always amazes me how a seemingly insignificant decision takes you to places that you never dreamed you could go.
I think about those women that made such a difference in the